and you can hear how much it's actually cleaned up. Turn on the EQ. Okay, like I said in the last video, we're going to do a bit more advanced usage of gate today. So let's take a look at it. I've already set it up. We're going to have a listen to what we've got, and I'm going to see how we achieve that. We're listening to kick 1 right now. It's not the best sound, it's not the best kit, and it's in a fully enclosed plexiglass enclosure. So this is pretty good for where the situation finds us. But let's listen to what it sounds like without the gate. Now in. So you can see that I've not only used this to reduce the background noise and to filter out that bleed, but I'm also using it to actually shape the sound of the kick drum by using my attack, hold, and release and the look ahead, including the depth as well, to be able to shape the sound. So it's not using it so much as just open or close. Great, we're trying to reduce as much background noise as we can. That's part of it. But a second part is actually shaping the sound. Why don't we bypass this one and let's insert a new one so that we can see from scratch how I came up with all that. So here we go. We're going to start with getting the threshold just right. Start about like that. Now what I want you to see with the depth is it actually does change the sound of the drum. The reason it's like that is because it takes a certain amount of time for that gate to open. And the further closed it is, so to speak, the more sound it's taking out, the further it has to go to open back up. And it takes an amount of time for that to happen. And so sometimes you need to play with the depth, not just because you want to introduce bleed back in there, but because it's actually changing the sound of the instrument that you're trying to put a gate on. So let's listen to how that actually changes the sound of it. And of course, up here, it's getting towards not doing anything. But you can hear at a point, it actually changes the way that the drum sounds. And now let's look at this on the other one that I'm using. There comes a point where it kind of starts to feel a little bit choked. And so we can play around with that depth to give us the sound we're looking for. And sometimes it does mean we reintroduce some background noise. Come back to this guy, and you can hear how it's snapping open and closing down really fast, and it makes the drum sound unnatural and not very nice. It's got some clickiness to it. We're going to increase that attack some, but you do have to be careful with increasing attack, because with a lot of low quality gates, you're going to introduce that click. You can hear it right as it tries to snap open, it's clicking, and it's trying to do it too fast. So if we just back off the attack a tiny bit, we avoid that click. And now the hold, it's snapping off too fast. 10 milliseconds is not enough to get the body of the kick drum. So we're going to increase that hold. That's starting to sound a lot better to give us a more full, thick, well-rounded sound of the kick. But then we're also getting some of the hi-hats in there, the cymbals and the snare, so we're going to release a bit faster. Pull this down. So that's better. It's giving us a little bit of a nicer sound. But what I want us to do is to play with this attack and see what that does for it. I'm going to turn the look ahead on just so it's a little bit more smooth. Get a little more clarity to it. It's not so clicky and struggling to keep up. But then listen to how this attack changes the way that the kick drum sounds. you see how it's actually lost a lot of the really thick low end that we used to have? Let's take that down. It starts to get rid of some of that really thick low end. That can actually muddy up your mix a bit too much if you have a whole lot of that in. We don't always want that. That's how you can actually shape the sound of your instrument with a gate, not just using it to reduce background noise. Now, the other thing you can do is, let's say that you've automated this, maybe it's a snare drum or something, you've automated it really heavily so that every single snare drum hit comes through perfectly and it eliminates all the other background noise that you don't want. And let's say that you have then a bottom snare mic and you want the same thing on that. Well, instead of trying to go through and automate every single piece of it again, you can sidechain. So what I've done here is I've right-clicked, insert send, and I've sent it to the gate kick 2. Right, so now the input of this one is going to be going off of the output of that one. See? So this one is actually reacting based on that one. So again, if this were a snare or something that you had heavily automated, the only time you would hear sound here is when you're getting sound out of that one. And so then it makes it really easy then to get this gate to react nearly identically to the one you have here without doing all the automation because you've already done it there. So we're going to undo that. Now this is the combined of both of them. And so you can see here that we're up way up there, -12, but this one's actually quieter. So it's taking the side chain from this guy here. So now it makes this easier to be able to then gate. This is not the best kick example, I know, it's just one that I happened to have on hand. And so then we can do the same thing here. We can use the attack, hold, release, etc. to shape the sound of this one then based on the opening given to us by this one. So there's a whole host of ways you could use this as a side chain goes, but I'm just giving you one example. So if you think this kick sounds bad now, just wait till I turn off the EQ. Yes, it sounds like a really floppy resonant head. There, turn off the gate. And you can hear how much it's actually cleaned up. Turn on the EQ. So if you're willing to forgive this sound, adding in this kick drum actually does bring out a lot of goodness to add to this one, where this one's got a little bit more of the mid sound, a little bit more of the 2 to 400, 600 range. This one could potentially lack in those areas by itself. Anyway, I hope that was a bit helpful for you to understand how to shape your instrument or your track with a gate and how to do some side chaining to make your life a lot easier, not spend so much time automating all those tracks. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.